Our students are digital natives. They're born into a digital world, but I find increasingly as I teach, they don't have an understanding of the underpinnings of that digital world, like how things are made and put online, how it's organized.
Barnard Teaches is a program which, thanks to the support of the Mellon Foundation, experiments with courses that are both more real and more virtual. So they're based on students working with actual New York City treasures, but then expressing what they've learned digitally.
This year I'm taking a class called The Worlds of Shange and Digital Storytelling, which is a course on Ntozake Shange's work and life. She is a Barnard alum. She is also a really well-known playwright, dancer, and artist generally who contributed a lot to Black feminisms as we know them today. This course is a Barnard Teaches class. Barnard Teaches courses really emphasize students being able to get onto the city and work with other institutions. The two institutions that we're focusing on in this class are the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, as well as the International Center for Photography.
I gave students a broad mandate to come up with a project that spoke to Ntozake's world or to the world of the Black arts movement. They learned a kind of basic use of photography, basic image editing, WordPress.
Our final project is going to be housed on a collective website. Students in the class are really expanding digital storytelling. So some people are choreographing dances, videotaping themselves, and then we'll house that video on the website. Some people are partaking in their own poetry writing or painting and their own artistic expression and production and housing them on the website.
They have playlists, they have movement exercises and choreo poems that they've developed, as well as two-dimensional images. You can't do that in a scholarly paper. You can only do that if you have the tools to hear and feel what it is you're creating. So it's a perfect kind of marriage in a way.
The class that I decided to do under the aegis of Barnard Teaches was called A Virtual Enlightenment, and its treasures are the fabulous collection in the Wrightsman Galleries at the Met. The Met has one of the world's best collections of 18th century furniture in terms of its luxurious opulence. And the challenge to students was to express those big ideas of the Enlightenment through actual objects. We had 4 sessions at the Met with Met curators who gave the students marvelously direct access. And then once a week we had a digital lab. Students began to design projects to convey digitally what they had learned from actual objects.
I had never touched Photoshop, didn't know what Rhino was, thought coding was super scary. But being exposed to all of these and having to spend time learning how to use them was really cool, and it's totally changed the trajectory of what I want to do and how I learn. My individual project was on the materials and makers of luxury objects that are in the Tessay room at the Met. I studied the chemistry and the physics and the use of the colors, why they ended up being so popular. You could make it truly academic, but you can also have a digital platform or a digital project that's accessible and more comprehensible and consumable to a greater public than just your peers and your professors.
The class I'm teaching this semester is called New York City's Gilded Ages Past and Present. And the idea behind the class is to think about whether or not we're in a second Gilded Age and then compare it to the first Gilded Age. And we do this through the comparison of objects, of personal adornment.
Looking at the syllabus, I noticed that you get to work with the New York Historical Society and you get to lend out a camera and get support from the ICP, which is International Center for Photography. Knowing that I'm going to be using Photoshop, I'm going to be taking pictures, I'm actually going to be applying ethnographic research and doing that work was really exciting.
The goal of the class is for students to select an object from the New York Historical Society that came from the first Gilded Age, research that object, think about the role of that object, how it created a sense of identity, a sense of coming of age for that person who would have or could have owned that object. And then to think about that first object and connect it to a second object. And this is where it gets really interesting because we're in a very different age.
So my objects are the purple felt hat with a bird of paradise on it from the first Gilded Age, and my second Gilded Age object is just generally fur coats. Encouraged to really go to primary sources. I remember in New York Historical Society we were able to look at these magazines from 1912, 1913, but within both of these objects, the narrative of where they're coming from, of like, where's this bird coming from? Where's this fur coat coming from is obscured. So that was like my main connection. It's like, we have to unravel where each of these objects are coming from, whose stories are not told, what is the labor behind this work that's not told.
The virtual exhibit, in many ways, it's reflecting how people learn. We're much more of a visual society, and that learning how to still think critically, but present information in a way that resonates with a broader audience is very much important. So how do you sort of keep that intellectual depth with new means of communicating information and knowledge?